welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Cam,
I'm Alex.
And I'm Ed.
and today we're going to do something different. I feel that in order for our reviews to be understood as well as possible, we all should make our individual perspectives more clear. So I want to make discussion questions a more frequent fixture on the channel. So with that said, today we're going to go with something kind of basic. What do our ratings mean for each of us?
Yes.
So I'm just going to let Ed take this one away. What do you got, Ed?
Yeah, rating systems are both one of the most arbitrary things ever that just do not matter in the slightest to anyone other than a person who is using a rating system for themselves or someone whose rating system is very clear across, like, say, a YouTube channel or a rating music account, in my view. That's my opinion. Like, if I'm asking some random guy in the street what he thought of Avengers Endgame or the new Star Wars movie or whatever, and if they say, oh yeah, it was a 7 out of 10, that's not really going to mean anything to me, because it's just a number. And I think people take the argument about rating systems as far as that and then decide that they're dumb. I actually think rating systems are incredibly useful. I mean, I'm probably very biased on this, given that I do have a Rate Your Music account, and I am very focused on, like, making sure that I give ratings that I feel comfortable with, awarding to the releases that I'm rating, and that my rating scale makes sense. So the thing that I want to, I guess the stigma that I want to kind of tackle here is that for some reason everyone seems to think that everything under a 7 out of 10 equals bad.
There's no way for me on that regard.
In some cases, less than an 8 out of 10, which is just insane to me, because to me, an 8 out of 10 is an amazing score. I give barely anything an 8 out of 10, as you may have noticed from, when I've appeared on this channel. The way I see it is that a 5 out of 10 is right down the middle, so it should mean, mediocre, decent, average. And, going by that, I would say that a 10 out of 10 would make something a masterpiece. A 9 out of 10 would make something, really exceptional, something really close to my heart, but, not quite in the highest echelon of quality that I perceive in music or, whatever medium. And then a 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5 would be, great, really amazing stuff, really commendable, probably one of the best releases of the year that it was released. And then a 7 would mean very good. So, like, above, the average, I guess, for whatever genre the music is in. Certainly, to my scale, recommended if it's a 7 out of 10. Like, I highly recommend something. And then a 6 is just good. So, like, nothing particularly special, but definitely solid, good, decent, a recommendation. And then, obviously, as I said before, 5 out of 10, decent, mediocre. 4 out of 10, bad. 3 out of 10, awful. 2 out of 10, abysmal. And then anything less than that, like, you better hope that I don't give you anything less than that. That's all I'll say on that.
You don't want to see what happens when he gives you less than that.
Exactly, yeah. So really, that's where I stand on it, honestly. I feel like once you can gauge what someone's rating scale means to them, it can be incredibly useful in gauging recommendations or, like, figuring out how your own taste differs from that person, so you can kind of figure out if they didn't like something in a certain way or, like, didn't like particular aspects of it that you've commonly disagreed with, any number of us on, then it's useful, I guess. Yeah, I guess don't take the numbers we say at the end of our reviews too seriously, and don't stack them up against each other, because we all very much have different systems. That's kind of my last word on this subject.
Yeah, don't take them as complete gospel, because there could be different variables going
Absolutely.
on that make them different legions of a 3 out of 5 could go either way almost. In some regards, like, it could be disappointing for someone or extremely, surprisingly good for someone else. So lots of different caveats and intricacies like that to take into account. For me, I'd say my rating system, the weird thing is mine's actually in a state of flux right now. I used to be extremely positively skewed, where my average score for an album would probably be 8 out of 10 if I just liked it, which I guess on a surface level is fair enough because that seems to correlate. But there's different levels to liking stuff. I can like stuff a lot or a little bit. So right now I'm more commonly giving out 7 out of 10s and it's becoming less positively skewed. I'd say I'm still pretty similar to Ed, but less, still a bit more positive in the way I view things, I'd say. Well, at the top of the scale, 10 out of 10's, I think we could all just say is just 10 out of 10's a masterpiece, unparalleled.
Yeah, you can't go any higher.
Yes, I think 9 is also pretty much the same. It's like pretty exceptional, close, a few minor hindrances that might not even be that big a deal to not make it a 10 out of 10, or maybe just one bad song while the rest are really good.
Yeah, for example, didn't we all give FKA Twigs' last album a 9 out of 10? Am I misremembering that?
I gave it an 8 or a 9, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I gave it a 8, Virgin on a 9, something like that. So that's a review that might be interesting to look back on knowing our scores. So now I'd say, back in the day, I'd say 8 out of 10 would just be I liked it, but now I'm gonna more on the very good, exceptional, great scale of things. 7 would be still quite good.
Yeah.
6 is like, there's problems with this album. 6 out of 10. There are undeniable problems here in some way. Like, there's some reason why it's getting a 6 and not a 7. Like, I can't just say it's good, but it might still be largely good. So that's
it's kind
like the
of
one
abstract, like deciding between whether something's a 6 or a 7. That's like the weirdest leap for me.
It's the weirdest one to consider because it still means technically more of it's good than bad, but the production might be terrible. The songs, most of the songs might not be fully formed for me.
It's never necessarily like how many songs are good versus how many songs are bad. Albums can have uniform problems that you might not necessarily notice by looking just at individual tracks, I think. So I guess
even a 5 for me. Yeah. If I give an album a 5 out of 10, it generally means I didn't really like it, but there's still some things to like about it. And then it's pretty much the same as Ed. 4, pretty mediocre. I mean, if I give an album a 3 out of 10, I'm not going to be listening to it again. Put it that way. No. 2, bad. I mean, what else? And 1, 0. Oh, I don't want to think about that. So yeah, that's my one. I'd say I find music easier to, for some reason, music ratings easier to talk and justify about than film ratings. Film ratings
me too.
Are so much more difficult for me. There's so many things to consider. So we're not even getting into that. This is just our music score ratings. So, Cam?
So, just one quick question for you guys before I get into my ratings. So, like a 5 out of 10 for both of you, you still wouldn't necessarily say that's a terrible rating, or that's like even an especially bad rating, right?
No. It means it could mean half of this is very good, or just most of this is okay.
For me, if about half of something was good, it would probably be, a 5 leaning on a 6. But the good tracks wouldn't have to be they wouldn't be anything special on their own. It really just depends on a case to case basis. But yeah, I wouldn't say 5 is a bad score. It's kind of just right down the middle. It could mean mediocre. It could mean decent. It could just be an average. But it doesn't mean awful.
Very disappointing if it's one of our favorites, though.
Yeah, so. I don't know if I gave the album this score at the time, but when we reviewed Humans by Gorillaz, which I consider to be a really jumbled, mediocre album that has a bunch of really good songs on it, on the whole, I would give that a 5 out of 10 now.
Don't know what I gave it, but I might give it a 6 now.
Yeah. Which is completely valid, because, I think the album flows really badly. It really doesn't function that well as an album, but I have gone back to individual tracks from that, even though I consider it a 5 out of 10 album, whereas other 5 out of 10 albums I would just not come back to, honestly. Yeah. So it's kind of hard. This is why you really just shouldn't take numbers super seriously as gospel, because they can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, they're a vague testament for us at the time, but It can always change. It could change the day after the review. It's good to have this out there because I feel like we all have our rating systems. Generally, we've figured them out. I mean, mine's in a slight state of flux, so I don't even know why I said that. But yeah.
Sometimes I end up disagreeing with myself. Sometimes my opinion changes. But generally, when I give a score on the channel, it's, I've thought long and hard about that. I've given the release at least 2 listens,
Yeah. I don't want to act like I think about this any more deeply than you guys, but I think my ratings are somewhat different, and maybe there's like a little too much overthinking for it.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to run through them, whatever. So for me, 5 is... I have it as a personal favorite. It's just the albums that I come back to more often than anything else. The ones that have meant the most to me.
And this is a 5 out of 5, right?
Oh, yeah, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10.
Okay. Just that we always do out of 10 on the channel, just to clarify that.
Those are personal favorites. They're albums that I don't expect anyone to enjoy as much as I do, with 2 exceptions being if the album is an established classic, like we've got Introducing and Blood on the Tracks and Born to Run.
Yeah.
And the rest, like, maybe if you're a fan of any of the bands that I've given 5s to, I could see you giving, high ratings to them. But aside from that, a 5 is not a broad recommendation. It's just saying this is something that means the most to me, which is why I don't think I ever give out 10s. And that's why I never give out 10s or even 9s for the most part on stuff we review on the channel, because it needs, for the most part, something needs to stick with me and build up to a 10 over time.
Right.
And so, like, an instant 9 is possible, but pretty rare.
Okay.
So that to me is like, a 9 is the absolute maximum score that I'll give something that I would also give a broad recommendation. Like, anyone who's a fan of this genre, or just anyone who loves music in general, needs to check out this album. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't check it out. And so then an 8 is, like, I'm pretty casual with 8s and 7s. Like, I don't really think about them too much necessarily. And this is where we're getting into some of the, overthinking specifics that I love so much. An 8 is like the peak of an album that has strong, respectable instrumentation and playing, emotional impact, and memorable songs. If it's missing any of those elements, then it's probably a 7.
Okay.
And then I have a 6 with 3 different tiers. So the first is 6A, which is something that it's not too bad. It may not be the most memorable thing ever. Maybe doesn't have the biggest emotional impact. And maybe it's just like, just a decent collection of so-so pop songs. But it's not something that I would necessarily recommend that people just go out and check out automatically.
See, it's interesting that 6 is the one for all 3 of us where, it's the most leeway, kind of. It's the one where there's a lot of distinguishing facets of a 6, which is interesting. It's like, we all think if it gets a 6, it could be kind of good still.
Yeah. And then 6B is what I call is just not too good, like just the opposite of that. Like, if it's something I don't strongly dislike, but I also just don't really enjoy a whole lot about it. Like, it has maybe potential to grow or, be liked by somebody else, I might give it a 6B. And then 6C is just meh, like I just don't feel one way or the other for it. And then some people might try to, like, say, okay, so then, not too bad version should be my 6, not too good should be my 5, and the meh should be my 5, and the not too good should be my 4. Maybe it should be that way, but I just don't see it that way at the moment.
Is 6A or 6B ever going to be factored in or mentioned during a review, or is this just a personal thing that means something to you, but you wouldn't actually factor it in?
Like, I'm pretty sure I've given some, like, I gave some 6s at least on the albums we missed in 2019 thing. And so, like, I'm pretty sure I gave a 6 to NFR.
Yeah, true, you did.
I would have given that one a 6A, just because like I said in the review, I don't think it's great. It's not something that I would really return to, but it says good things for how my opinion of Lana Del Rey might change in the future if she does more stuff like that or better than that.
I'm guessing a 5 to 1 is kind of similar to us. Like,
well, here's the thing. Here's where we differ. Let me double check and make sure I'm not talking out the wrong side of my face here. Okay, so a 2 or a 4 out of 10 right now.
Okay.
Is the lowest rating that I have given to a full album on my RYM account, and I don't think I've ever gotten even that low, or okay, with like the exception of maybe like the Jacob Sartorius EP and that Train album we reviewed a couple years
Stuff
ago.
that we purposely thought wouldn't be good going into them, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah. So like those are the lowest ratings that I've given, and I can stand by those. But for the most part, I don't use anything lower than a 4 out of 10 for a regular rating.
Okay.
For an album rating, because to me it's just so much easier to say this one song is complete garbage and there's absolutely nothing valuable to it, as opposed to an album, because there's always got to be something.
Yeah,
like
because if an album has a 4 out of 10, it's pretty much a failure in of itself.
yeah, it's like nobody is just like you don't have teenagers recording their very first rehearsal session with their garage band and uploading it
I don't know,
to the
there's
internet
a lot of
for
that.
release.
I've seen some of that, so
I mean, it's not common. It's like that's
okay,
not the
yeah.
kind of thing we're ever going to
True,
listen
true.
to. And so it's like I wouldn't see any point in rating that anyway. So it's like as long as there is some level of musicianship and performance quality to it, I don't really understand why, or how anything could earn a 1 out of 10 or anything like that.
It'd have to be unspeakably bad.
Yeah, or like it could be stuff like I totally get why people give low ratings to like Hitler speeches and Reagan speeches and whatever that like My Favorite Alien or whatever
Oh,
that is.
God. Well,
just like memetically bad stuff like that.
we're not going to be reviewing that stuff.
Yeah. So it's like maybe those things could earn those lower ratings, but I'm not listening to them. I don't see the point of that. So who knows? Maybe we're going to find something that is just like so baffling and so thoroughly disappointing on Busted Speakers that I can't help but give it one of those bottom marks. But for right now, a 4 out of 10 is just the lowest that I go, even for bands that I like and
Yeah.
just stuff that just I can't bring myself to listen to ever again. And
Fair enough, fair enough. So I
Yeah.
left it open that I could give stuff lower than a 4. I think I have on occasion, but not very often. Yeah, that's basically our ratings, guys. Because this might not reflect everything reviewed on the channel. Like Cam said, there's some stuff from 2+ years ago with Kush that probably is a bit outdated, our scores. So this is definitely reflects what we're currently reviewing on the channel, and probably some other stuff. Like I believe all of Ed's stuff, the rating system's pretty consistent, so that's good. So I hope this could be used as some sort of guide so you can understand our ratings a bit better and where we're coming from with them.
Okay, so thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.